gazing into a literal black mirror. As you stare into the blackness, into the interminable abyss, someone or something stares back into you.
Certain linguistic anthropologists think that religion is a language virus that rewrites pathways in the brain, dulls critical thinking.
As Rust Cohle alluded to in the first season of True Detective, language can be like a virus that hijacks certain neural pathways in the brain. Being mindful of the words one speaks is the first step to taking back freedom and awakening from the spell that has been cast. The global elite have utilized word magic, a form of black magic, as a means to pervert the masses' sense of reality. Once infected, the new language begins to subconsciously influence and alter behaviors, sometimes in a dysgenic manner. This linguistic sorcery is meant to pervert or alter in some destructive way the true meaning of a word so that it becomes its opposite. Similar to Orwell's concept of newspeak, word magic enables the ruling class to direct the behaviors of its subjugates. For example, we often hear the term government-funded used in the media. There is no such thing as government funding. The government has no money. The words government-funded should be eliminated from the vocabulary. The taxpayers are the only source of funding that are to be allocated towards social programs. The first step to reclaiming freedom is to become aware of this form of linguistic sleight of hand. We must be cognizant of its use and learn to replace terms such as government-funded with the term taxpayer-funded. This gives credit where credit is due. It also rewires the neural pathways so that the connection is established in the mind of the speaker that the financial responsibility for whatever programs are being funded falls upon himself and not some abstract entity such as the government. Learning to rely on the term taxpayer-funded indicates that the populace has become aware that the government takes money from the workforce, which is the only class that creates wealth, and allocates it to programs that benefit itself rather than the populace as a whole. It is a form of embezzlement. One needs look no further than the amount of money that is seized from the taxpayer to be redistributed to powerful weapons manufacturers or telecommunications companies that will be used to engage in activities that are not necessarily beneficial to the taxpayer who funds them.
You know how I describe the economic and social classes in this country? The upper class keeps all of the money, pays none of the taxes. The middle class pays all of the taxes, does all of the work. The poor are there just to scare the shit out of the middle class. Keep them showing up at those jobs.
Currently, only 3 classes exist in contemporary American society. The ultra-wealthy elite, which comprise about 1% of the population, the labor force, which generates all the wealth and pays the taxes, and finally, the welfare or impoverished class. The latter class contributes nothing to the wealth of the society. However, what is less known is that the 1% also contribute no wealth to society. In this 3-class system, one class creates wealth and resources, while the remaining 2 classes are parasitic in nature. It is important to make a clear distinction between the rich and the wealthy. The rich are the upper part of the middle class. The wealthy are part of the ruling elite. The rich refers to a class whose labor and innovations have contributed in some way to the betterment of society. The compensation received in return is warranted, and they pay taxes on what they have earned. By contrast, the wealthy refers to a class that has made no such contributions to society. This class pays no taxes and hoards its wealth. The rich are the top earners of the labor force and must be distinguished from the wealthy, who are not part of the labor force. More will be presented on this topic in a subsequent installment. The wealthy 1%, though smaller in number, are the largest of parasitic classes. They extract the largest portion of the resources accumulated by the workforce and contribute absolutely nothing. In fact, the elite are the cause of most of the expenditures due to their lust for war and power over other nations and their resources. These resources, of course, will not be extracted by the elite, but by the working class on whom they prey. Both the elite ruling class, as well as the welfare and impoverished class, receive their wealth and resources from the labor of the working class. The term government assistance should also be replaced with the words taxpayer assistance. For just as with government-funded projects, government-assisted programs, such as welfare, are funded solely by the taxpayer. A second important example of linguistic sorcery involves the proliferation of the word capitalism. Many have come to believe that America is a capitalist society, just as, sadly, many people believe that America was founded as a democracy. America was founded as a constitutional republic, which means the rule of law and not rule of the majority. America's economy was referred to as an open or free market economy. This is distinctly different from a capitalist society. Democracy working in conjunction with capitalism are the perfect recipe for corporate fascism. They are the elements that are necessary to transition from a representative government elected by the people to the implementation of an authoritarian corporate fascist state. This transition is subtle and made possible through the allowance of monopolistic control of the market and the accumulation of immense wealth that results from the elimination of competition. In a free market economy, the merchant or the provider of a service or goods is responsible for their products being reasonably priced and of high quality, because the market provides numerous alternatives for consumers should a merchant fall short of this responsibility. This keeps prices reasonable and quality high. By contrast, the capitalist society is one wherein fewer and fewer alternatives are available as larger portions of the market are consolidated into the hands of a few corporations. This results in fewer alternatives for the consumer. The ultimate goal of the capitalist is a monopoly, which means prices and labor compensation can be set at the will of the corporation. They are no longer dictated by the supply and demand of the market. Capitalism is a word coined by Karl Marx. As an aside, if we were to trace the roots of communism, we would find most likely that the people who funded Marx and his dystopian ideology are the exact same people who benefit from consolidation of wealth and power. The very same people who benefit from the exploitation of the working class. In other words, Karl Marx was controlled opposition, funded by the very wealthy industrialists who sought to consolidate the wealth. He was either a dupe, an unwitting participant in the subterfuge, or he was a shill, meaning that he was well aware that he was working at the behest of the very people he publicly denounced. The word capitalism was actually coined to describe the wealthy industrialists who had recently come to power, threatening to supplant the aristocracy. The aristocracy refers to the old money families who had possessed wealth and power throughout much of recorded history. The industrialist, much like the corporation, sought to gain a monopoly over a given market. In other words, it seeks to eliminate competition, the very essence of what drives a free market. Capitalists seek to consolidate wealth and resources, whereas the operators within a free market economy have no such insidious desires. Marx's term, capitalism, actually describes a corporatocracy, a form of system that is controlled by corporations and their interests. This will eventually devolve into an oligarchy. If we look at most present-day societies and consider their economies, most of them are oligarchies. This is true whether they call themselves capitalist or communist. This should be evident from the fact that every nation, regardless of its chosen label, always features a small percentage of people at the top, usually 1%, who possess all of the wealth and the influence, and below them are the labor force, who possess significantly less wealth and almost no power, while performing all of the work and providing all of the nation's wealth. This common characteristic holds true in China and other communist countries as in the West. It is important to emphasize that capitalism is not the same thing as a free market economy. In fact, they are diametrically opposed. The American economy ceased to be an open market when the government passed a law recognizing corporations as artificial persons, which granted them the same rights as an American citizen. This, in essence, is the early stages of corporate fascism. It is the forging of the first relationship between the corporation and the government, one that is inevitably doomed to become a government where the corporations become the governing bodies. This is the natural stage of the process, as corporations by their nature are parasitic and seek to consolidate wealth, corner all markets, and eliminate any form of competition. As they grow ever larger and accumulate greater wealth and power, they use this wealth and power to lobby and influence government until they become the actual government itself. Thus, there is no capitalism, and there definitely is no free market economy. This is the form of linguistic sleight of hand used to acclimate the minds of the masses to accepting opposing ideologies, such as those promulgated by Marx, so that it can be used to facilitate the very wealth accumulation that it ostensibly opposes. This wealth is then used to lobby for policies and laws that increase corporate power until the corporations simply begin to buy their politicians outright, eventually supplanting the existing government with its own. Marx sold communism to the masses as a movement that strives for a classless society. Ask yourself this: do you really believe that the wealthy elite intend to redistribute the wealth equally among the masses if communism is implemented? We look forward to seeing you soon. Like a labyrinth, the Black Mirror is a rabbit hole down which you are forever tumbling and from which you may never return, and your self-image will be remade into whatever form the dwellers within the darkness of the Black Mirror want you to be.
Didn't start asking the right fucking questions.